All right, welcome to the show, folks. I'm your host, Farajii Muhammad. We are so excited about tonight's conversations. First, let's talk about the fact that a number of liberal politicians are losing in liberal cities. What is going on? We'll break it down for you. Also, let's talk about the Senate putting a bill to Congress to talk about the harmful effects of social media, the Kids Online Safety Act of 2022. What's in the bill? What does that mean? We'll break it down. Also, the first Black Attorney General is now defending the NFL. Loretta Lynch has now been called by the NFL to defend them in this Brian Flores lawsuit. Really? Yeah. And a TikTok star has been stalked and was almost killed by one of her frenetic fans. As we talk about what's going on social media, here's a case, folks, that you do not want to be in. And then later, threads, posts, and doing the most. We got a lot to get to, so stay with us. It's all happening on The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. Folks, many people are asking the question, what is going on politically? This is, of course, a major political year for a number of reasons, from congressional seats to local seats and gubernatorial seats as well. But the overall landscape of politics right now seems to be up for grabs. There is not one defining thing that is bringing both the Democrats and the Republicans together. And as a result of that, they say when two elephants are going to war, it is the grass, us, you and me, the constituents, the citizens of this United States of America. We are the ones that are left with the short end of the stick. And I wanted to have a conversation based upon some recent findings that's showing that a number of liberal politicians, Democrats, are losing in liberal urban cities. Democrats. Why is this happening? If the Republican Party, and we've talked about this here, folks, if the Republican Party seems to be going awry, if the Republican Party seems to be becoming, as some has characterized it as, the party of Trump, a cult, then how is it that liberals, Democrats, on the other side of the aisle are still losing in those urban centers? And I'm speaking of big places, folks. I mean, places that are genuinely liberal. I want to break it down to you because I want to show this, and I want to let's look at a little bit of where we are right now across the state. I mean, across this country, and then we'll bring in our culture crew member Rashad Staten, who is going to give us some insight as well on this whole thing. But I want to show you very quickly this phenomenon that we are in right now about liberals. Let's just bring this screen up, Keenan, about where we are in this country. Now, we're asking this question: why are liberals losing in liberal cities? Let me just show this very quickly. In Minneapolis, voters rejected a ballot measure to replace the city's police department with an agency that would have focused less on law enforcement. In Seattle, voters elected Ann Davison, a lawyer who had recently quit the Democratic Party because she thought it had moved so far left as the city's top prosecutor, and she beat a candidate who wanted to abolish the police. In New York, voters elected as their mayor Eric Adams, a Democrat who revels in defying liberal orthodoxy. As a candidate, he promised to crack down on crime. Since taking office, he has signaled his frustrations with COVID restrictions. Crime and COVID, two big conversations, two big issues for Democrats and Republicans, and both. And we're seeing that Democrats are moving closer to the Republican view. Very, Very interesting. And then in the Democratic-leaning suburbs of both New Jersey and Virginia, Republican candidates for governor did surprisingly well. Several post-election analysis, including one by aides to Phil Murphy, New Jersey's Democratic governor, who narrowly survived, concluded that anger over COVID policies played a central role. So we're seeing that there are a number of cities, and that was all courtesy of the New York Times and that observation. But we're seeing, folks, a number of cities. I live in a Democrat-governed city, and I know many of you probably do, but we're seeing in a number of cities that Democrats just don't seem to cut the mustard when it comes to dealing with some of these issues, some of the bigger issues. Let me just go. Let's go down a list: crime, education, COVID. There's still a number of people that are trying to figure out what to do in terms of colleges and in schools, with the colleges and money for that. I mean, there are so many issues that are on the table, and yet these politicians and this party still seems to not be hitting the mark. They're still out of touch. Now, if you thought Republicans were out of touch, imagine. Just take a walk with me on this one, folks. Imagine you say, "Oh, the other side is out of touch." I mean, they called January 6th a legitimate political discourse. They're out of touch because they're doing voter suppression. They're out of touch because they are not really cracking down on the policing issue. They're out of touch because they're going crazy over critical race theory in the schools. They're igniting the flame, right? They're gaslighting. They're out of touch. But then you go into the Democrat side. And what are we seeing? What are we seeing? Have we seen any improvement with policing? Have we seen any improvement around how to handle COVID? Whereas the Republicans say, "Oh, take off the mask, cut down on the restrictions." The Democrats are saying, "Let's keep things going. Let's keep the mask going." And it's not in tune with public opinion. Have you seen any movement on voting? Yes, we know about voter suppression. We know about voter restriction. But what about voter rights, voter freedom? Have we pushed the needle further along on that issue? So when we're dealing with these type of dynamics, then we have to stop and ask ourselves, what is going on? Why are we seeing that in liberal centers, traditional liberal centers, liberals just can't win? I want to bring in my culture crew member, Rashad Staton, who is an activist and educator, and get his thoughts on this situation. Rashad, always good to have you, brother. Thank you so much for checking in and being a part of the conversation.
Peace and blessings, Farajii. I'm down with the culture as always. This topic itself is plausible. I enjoy digging deep on this one, but I think what it brings up is this level of uncertainty, regardless of what side of the aisle the American citizen is in, but it plays a level of uncertainty both for the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and the lens itself that we're talking about is the Democratic Party, that speaks on the urgency of providing clarity of that particular party and its affiliation and stance to its citizens, its constituents. There's a pendulum switching within that Democratic Party that brings uncertainty to the most civically engaged or civically aware voter pool. That sense of what the Democratic Party is now finding itself between a pendulum shift between the moderate left and the far left, right? This way of this progressive and this liberatory type of Democratic Party in itself, whereas though the voting poll, if not attuned to what's happening locally, statewide, and across the country and nationally, you see this pieces of the pie being portioned even smaller and smaller, that you can't gauge the level of respectability and autonomy that this Democratic Party once had with Black and brown folks. It's now being split even between brown populations and Black populations. And it's now being switched between that electoral candidate itself and their particular vantage points and how they're tied into certain commitments and also where the funding is oftentimes, right?
Yeah.
But I think what we get here is the level of when we come to the polls and we're working on deciding on whom to vote for, i.e. being elected official or board commission, school board commissioners, there's still some uncertainty because we deal with this elephant in the room that have existed now for 2 going on 3 years, being COVID, that forced us from a normal way of life to this new normal way of life, right? And that is, how do we deal with it? Do you deal with it with these far left, very progressive, socialist type of ideologies to the moderate ones, which Democratic Party had a firm stance on for the last 60 years? But even more interesting to that is, I believe, like me and you always say, it's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
Our brown and our hue color is not a determinant of what party affiliation we should be obliged to give favor to, right?
Well, here's the thing, though, Rashad. Here's the thing, bro. The big thing is that both parties seem to be out of touch. That's the part about this whole conversation, that both parties seem to not get it. I mean, public opinion, whether you're talking about COVID, whether you're talking about critical race theory, whether you're talking about, economics, whether you're talking about, all of these things. And it just seems like the public we're here. And I'm saying some parts, okay, we're here, right? And I can't, we live in urban cities like Baltimore, DC, and I'm speaking of those areas where we're finding that a lot of liberal politicians and it's a lot of blue in some of these, with some of these major cities, right?
Correct.
But now we're in a space where it seems like if you're talking about critical race theory, then the Democrats want to say, all right, yeah, critical race theory, and that's why we need to defund the police. And it'd be like, what the hell? Like,
it's no middle ground. It's no middle ground. The decisions has to be extreme, which leaves the people more confused in making a conscious decision, because the only options that are often put on the table that's working towards advancing or supporting Black or brown or even Democratic populace has always been an extreme option, right? There's often little, and if there is a middle ground, there's too much gray area that leaves others to come and revert back the same things that we've put in place to make these directions even more clear. It's like, all right, critical race theory in itself should not be one indicator of abolishing police and law enforcement in itself, but it should, like, again, with most things, something should be working simultaneously rather than we have to put our eggs in one basket. And when we're not given that option of clarity, that confuses our populace, our citizens who should be voting in favor of something that they best see fits them. But you get there and you're uncertain based off your own level, your own interests of politics, and your own understanding of its implications and how it rolls out, or whether this will be a one-time fixer or if they're putting policies in place that can be sustainable, right? So it comes back of like when you give two extremes, and both parties are now operating in extremist approaches, right? You have the moderate, and then you have the far left liberal type of approach, and then you have the Republican Party that has the same fractions within their parties, right? This far right, and then this progressive yet moderate party affiliation and standpoints that everyone is uncertain, that both of them, regardless of the color, red or blue, they're starting to lose less traction than anything today. So I think it comes back to play. Will we eventually see Black and brown folks move to another party affiliation, as we've seen has been a continuance over the last 100 years or so? We didn't all come in initially being under the Democratic Party. Black and brown folks initially started with the Republican Party. Now we're 60 to 70 years from that affiliation change, that we may see an emergence or switch back into one or another party affiliation, being the Green Party and others that have gained some momentum within the last few electoral cycles.
Well, and you know what, Rashad, one of the big things, and I think you're touching on a very important point, which is, that both parties have acquiesced to this level of extremism. We've seen it, of course, on the Republican side, but on the Democrat side, what would you say is the extremism? Is it because of ideas like totally abolish the police, or is that still considered to be a progressive issue? And here's the thing. I think we need to, as we go further along in these discussions about, the parties, that we should make it clear that you have moderates, those folks who are in certain spaces, they're not all the way, but they're kind of agree with the party. So for example, I think it's she's a moderate, Kristen Sinema. I think she's a moderate within the Democratic Party. That means that she sort of agrees. Then you have your traditional Democrat, which is the blue chip Democrat, right? They all in for party and all of those things. Then you have your your progressive Democrat, right? Your progressive Democrat is the one that's like, hey, the traditional Democrats aren't doing enough, so we need to push the envelope even more. And they might be the ones that's pushing this idea of, okay, quote unquote, abolish the police, or they might put ideas before the party that is really it's outside of the comfort level of the party.
Right.
And so I just wanted to take that moment to at least break that down, because I mean, when you say far left, progressive, moderate, want to be clear on where people stand. Like, there are so many issues on the table that I think a lot of us as Black people in this country, I think we kind of go across the gambit. We are not a political monotheistic group.
Correct.
We don't, I think I'm just starting with myself. In some cases, I'm fiscally conservative. You know what I mean? I'm in some cases, I don't, I definitely want us to make sure that we do things for the less of our people, the less of the citizens, for the poor of this country. I don't think that we need to put a lot of money in foreign policy or more money in defense. I mean, I think that we're on this kind of this sliding scale, and people are trying to figure out like where we to fit. But I know one thing, the way that the Democrat Party is currently, we're not making any progress. We're still at a stalemate at this point, Rashad.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Democratic Party in itself is trying to build some sustainability in what their approach and ideologies are, with the understanding that it has diversified in the most recent years, coming from the last electoral presidential cycles, right? This is a place of uncertainty that is reflecting in the data, and it's showing up how it's changing this red and blue state. And even if we go into more urban populous districts, right, that uncertainty of having a diversified Democratic Party that was not once in existence, but now is showing up on a national, from Capitol Hill down to your statewide, down to your local. It is reflective on how our Democratic populations and communities are now voting. Some things in which, like you said, being not being a monolithic persons, right? Now we are starting to see a shift in a divisiveness on what we are in favor of and what we're not. And that is always going to be reflective per the different the different priorities: education, public safety, law enforcement, and policing, things of that sort. I want to say home ownership and things of that sort. All of this is going to always be, until the Democratic Party has a firm stance on what their things are. We're going to start to see some diversity amongst the options, the transition of seats, the transition of priorities and things of that sort. Because again, as we have now become more politically aware in the most recent years, we're starting to see that there's not a one size fit all on the type of candidate that we should be electing. And should not be offered two extremist options as though you pick one and not work on the other simultaneously. So I think
absolutely
this calls into play, but it also is I see it optimistically as a great way of Black and brown folks becoming more politically astute.
I agree wholeheartedly with you, brother, because if there isn't any other time for us to say to ourselves, what are our interests, what is our agenda, this will be the perfect time to do it. Because and I mean, I know it sounds crazy, folks, this might sound very ironic, because in the midst of discord and dysfunction and chaos, for those of us who are conscious and understand the dynamics of power, we can say, okay, looks like there's these two elephants are going to war with one another. Let's back out and let's see if we can create a different situation. Now, that could be this ultimate solution. We've been trying to speak into that for these past couple of weeks, but we don't know. There has to be a political will that has to rise up. I think, especially among Black people, the Latino community, and other communities, to say enough is enough. Rashad, let me share with you a little bit of the comments that we got coming in on our YouTube. As folks checking in on YouTube, Facebook, folks, keep your comments coming because I'm enjoying them. Janae say it is frustrating, and within the party, it's almost too liberal. Therein lies the discord of getting on one accord. Unfortunately, yeah, it's too liberal.
Agreed.
Sometimes I think the Democrats want to be so for everybody that they lose people. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Just because we might identify ourselves differently doesn't mean that we don't and still have inherent values that are the same thing, similar values. Forensic accountant said, I keep saying that we need to break our addiction to urban centers and consider rural living again. I'm not advocating to return to sharecropping, but a return to land ownership. America as a whole is being remotely controlled via rural America. That's an interesting take. That's a very interesting take. And I'm saying that's interesting, Rashad, just simply because we have seen a number of people as a result of this pandemic, I believe, who are moving from your big cities into smaller cities. You know what I mean? We definitely saw a great migration of folks from West Coast and East Coast down to the southern parts of the country. You know what I mean? From everywhere from the Carolinas to Texas to Georgia. I mean, all of those states are getting an influx of people, and they're going to get more representatives coming as a result of that, especially coming up in this year's congressional election. So, I mean, we definitely seeing that more people are saying, you know what, after a while, I don't want to be in an urban space anymore. I want to have more land. I want to do something, kind of spread things out. I definitely see it. Brian checked real quick. Brian checked in and said, liberals don't speak to or for working people.
Strong vantage point. Strong vantage points.
And I think that's true, because when you're talking about working class, we got to throw the middle class. I remember growing up around when Bill Clinton was in office, and there was always this talk about, protecting the middle class. And this was like the early 90s, protecting the middle class. And it kept being repeated by Democratic presidents, protecting the middle class. Now it's like, where's the protection?
We're watching the eradication of the middle class. Like it's eroding.
The unraveling of the middle class.
Right. And I think what all the comments and the viewers are saying, and appreciative of them sharing their own insight, I think some of them are making strong points. Again, the last comment I had made is we're seeing a shift, right? Every time there's a shift in politics, there's a shift in economics, there's a shift in social structures, you tend to see Black and brown folks migrating to different ways, right? Either reverting back or going to different approaches. And we're starting to see that even down to our migration of urban now to rural, down from our political affiliations and parties, down to our sense of home ownership and academia, right? We're starting to see this all in the different facets of life, because we as Black and brown folks are striving for security, striving for sustainability, and striving for the fact that we want to exist, right? Despite this system and the bureaucracies of how they always operate, we cannot continue to be the mules of everyone else's labor. Right, we want some sense of our own identity, ownership, and what we pursue as our own trajectory of success and livelihood. And this is going to cause us each time to go back and revisit which door is best fitting for us to enter and which table is best fitting for us to sit at. So I think this plays a larger part, and we'll continuously have these conversations until we make a firm stance collectively, right? Yeah. Not of monolithic ideologies, but of collectively of what you said. What is our priorities? What is our stance? What are things that we are willing not to compromise? And what are things we're willing to negotiate and come to a fair understanding so that we can be stakeholders that can see ourselves as a majority. We're now the majority, so we now should be respected and upheld in respectability of being a majority and not even being, labeled or seen as minority when we are the largest populace of any persons across the globe now, Black and brown folks. So we now need to shift the same systems that were projected on us to say it was there to support us and has always been there to exploit us. So if we continue to break down those numbers and lead into a place where they can't use algorithms to try to sway our votes for their advancement, we may be doing this unintentionally and unconsciously, disrupting systems that should no longer be exploiting us come 2022 and years beyond.
Hey, look, real quick, Rashad, as I was listening to you, were talking about the issue of respect. And I think one of the biggest disrespectful acts, rather, that the Democrats can do right now is to make the assumption that Black people are going to vote for you.
Correct.
I think in 2022, if you are a Democratic candidate, if you are looking to run for office or you're in that process right now, go to Black people. Don't make the assumption. I'm saying whether you're a white candidate, Black, Latino, whoever, go to Black people. Because if you assume, they Black, I just got to go to that area just maybe once or twice, throw out a couple of flyers, shake some hands, kiss some babies. I'm good because I'm a Democrat. I'm good. You're going to get your feelings hurt. Because Black folks are saying, we're saying it in droves, Rashad. We've been talking about it on this show. Brother Roland been talking about it on his show. You want to get your feelings hurt, man. If you're a Democratic candidate, you better go to Black people and you better lay out your plan the same way you lay out your plan in the suburbs to get those folks. You better lay out your plan in the hood as well. You better lay out your plan in the inner city. Go to Black people. Don't assume, because if you start to assume that just because it's a Black neighborhood or, you're going to get your feelings hurt. Look, Rashad, I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, let's shift gears. Let's talk about social media, folks. There is a bill that the Senate is trying to push through with bipartisan support, according to the folks in both the House and the Senate, around the harmful effects of social media, the Kids Online Safety Act of 2022. We're going to discuss what that Safety Act means, the implications, and a whole lot more. So stay with us. We're just getting started right here on The Culture, here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks. Yesterday, legislators in Washington introduced a brand new bill, a bipartisan bill that was aimed at protecting children from harmful effects of social media. The bill, which is sponsored by Senators Marsha Blackburn, who is a Republican out of Tennessee, and Richard Blumenthal, who is a Democrat out of Connecticut, came as Congress held 5 hearings on the dangers of social media for children aged 16 and younger. The bill is called the Kids Online Safety Act of 2022. And I want to share with you what that bill encompasses. Let's bring that up for me, please. The Kids Online Safety Act of 2022, it includes social media companies. There are 5 pieces to this bill. 1, social media companies would be required to provide privacy options, the ability to disable addictive features, and allow users to opt out of recommendations like pages or other videos to like. It would also make the strongest privacy protections the default. The second part of that is the bill would give parents tools to track time spent in the app, limit purchases, and help to address addictive usage. That's 2 components. The other 2 components are it would require social media companies to prevent and mitigate harm to minors, including self-harm, suicide, eating disorders, substance abuse, sexual exploitation, and unlawful products for minors like alcohol. And also, social media companies would be required to use a third party to perform independent reviews to quantify the risk to minors, compliance with the law, and whether the company is taking meaningful steps to prevent those harms. Now, the final element of the bill is that social media companies would be required to give kids data. This is important, folks, to academic and private researchers. The scientists would use that data to do more research on what harms children on social media and how to prevent that harm. Now, those are the 5 components of this bill. It's a lot more accountability. It's a lot more protection measures that are being put in place. And I'm asking a question, do you think that this is necessary? Do you think that this is a good idea? And folks, share your thoughts with me. And I want to bring back Culture Crew member Rashad Staton to give us his thoughts, as he's an educator, activist, working with the next generation. Rashad, you know firsthand, brother, about how this bill, or really how social media goes, the effects of social media. You worked in the school system. You work with young people in the community. What do you take from the Senate and the House trying to put a piece of legislation together to regulate social media?
I think this proposed bill in itself, and I like the idea that it's being proposed and has both bipartisan support. But I think this bill in itself, or what I've gauged, is timely and purposeful. I think it addresses the elephant in the room that social media itself, being this next generation, it doesn't really more so have to go through a Webster's dictionary or encyclopedia, that they have the world at their fingertips by the press of a button, either asking Alexa or Siri, or just double tapping their finger thumbs, and everything is just right there. But it comes into question of how do we have balance? How is our young people able to navigate and determine validity from falsehood, determine truth for sugar-coated lies, determine what is best for their positive development versus what is distracting them and causing unconscious or conscious harm. I think this bill itself allow us to address the two-headed sword that social media has done. I myself are very conscious in my young age as well of how I utilize my social media, and not giving so much of myself to a world of those that are labeled as followers, but you have others that are preying on you, right?
Yeah.
And I always say what causing the question around social media when I talk to young people is to be cognitive that you both, yes, you're born with an umbilical cord, but your generation is also born with a smartphone adapter, right? That you can tap into both the virtual world and the human world at one time, but you need to be cautious and cognitive enough to still find your identity in both, right? And another one that I always say, which is why I like this bill, because I know it was initially probably proposed by, some of our tech giants in these industries themselves. And we started to see entertainers like Kanye West and others that prompted the idea of not showing followers, right? Because it created a sense of falsehood around self-worth and value based off of the number of followers and tractions that you got, and everyone wanting to be possible in this microwavable society of being viral. But all viral sensationalism is not good, right? That we possibly could do self-harm to ourselves and others just for a retweet, a reshare, and an additional like or some comments under that makes us feel as though our post was worthy, when it's actually doing less to our advancement and doing more to the disadvancement of us and us as individuals and collectively. No social media platform has a leadership button. It causes us all to follow someone. And it means that we now have to be cognitive of our diet. And diet is not all about what you're eating or consuming beverage wise, but it's also what you're listening to, what words and messages that you are allowing to go into your subconscious and your conscious mind. And how is that changing, your anatomy, your biological makeup, and also your thought processes. And I think this bill itself causes the algorithms and the robotic systems that are perpetuated by people that have their own biases, prejudice, and racist ideologies to now regulate themselves before it actually harms the young people that's going to be mostly impacted by it, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
Fireproof so that we can have a community of young people that are healthy to keep this world moving in a fruitful place.
Well, you know what, and I'm really, and I think you're right on point, Rashad, because I feel like the way you made the analogy that you're born with the umbilical cord, but also with an adapter, I think that's powerful, and I think that it's also concerning. And there are a number of organizations that are out there. One of them is by the name of Center for Humane Technology. And one of the things that they pushed, they did, I go back to, this documentary that they did on Netflix about social media. But one of the big things that the Center for Humane Technology often puts out is this idea that we can coexist in the world with technology, that we can use it. But the way that we're seeing technology influence people, and this is the part about it, the way that social media has shaped and shaped in the context of how somebody sees themselves and how they see the world around them. And I'm speaking to, young people, children, you're 13, 14 years old, you're seeing this stuff. You're seeing the images of IG. You're seeing the content, you're seeing the videos, whether they're violent videos or whether they are videos about shootings, and all of this stuff is kind of unfiltered, right? All of this stuff is just at a one button disposal. You just hit one button and boom, you're exposed to a new reality. And if you're 13 and 14 years old and 15 years old or 12, your natural curiosity is going to take you down that Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And next thing you know, you into a situation where you're feeding off of this. You're believing all of this, right? And there's no filter. There's no regulation. There aren't any restrictions. And that's the part about this conversation. And look, and check this out. I want to share with you just very quickly. I want to share with you, Rashad, and for our watchers, how serious this really is. Because as much as we go back and forth about Facebook and everything, big tech is not slowing down, brother. I'm telling you, big tech is not slowing down. I want to share with you very quickly just some of the numbers in terms of how much tech companies are bringing in over the past year. They said Amazon, this is according to the recent numbers. Amazon, for example, is not just a retailer and is the largest cloud services provider. Their cloud business now has a $71 billion annual revenue run rate. The company also disclosed that its advertising business generated $31 billion in revenue in 2021. You need to holler at us here at Black Star Network, right? While Microsoft said its ad revenue exceeded $10 billion. And it said that, remember, that ads are, in the scheme of things, a small part of the business model for both companies. Let me just share with you what other companies are bringing in. Man, I mean, when you start looking at it, it is absolutely crazy how much money these companies are bringing in. And I feel like Brother Roland on this, but when you look at it, the fact that these companies are now, they started with these, you might Facebook or Meta started with this social media platform, and it's now growing.
It's
growing out. And they're growing out. And guess what? There's no regulation. There's no regulation. There's nobody saying to Meta, hey, stop growing. Nobody is saying that. Meta brought in, let me just bring up and we're going to bring it. Oh, for example, Meta brought in, well, let's talk about Netflix, then we're going to go back to Meta. Netflix has about 222 million subscribers in total. That's Netflix. Apple, their finance chief, Luca Maestri, he told investors last month that the company now has 785 million paying subscribers to its various offerings, a number that grew by 165 million in the past year. We are becoming more and more reliant on technology in a way that we probably never seen before. And the numbers that these companies are bringing in, Google, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, or Meta, the numbers, I mean, these four tech companies, this is the first time, very quickly, Rashad, and I want to get your take on this. This is the first time in history. This is the very first time in history that we've seen technology companies bigger than your other type of companies that are out there, bigger than Ford and bigger than, companies that provide tangible product. This is the first time in history. Amazon, Apple, Google, and Microsoft, these four American companies now worth more than $1 trillion each. Microsoft is above $2 trillion. Apple, nearly $3 trillion. And that's what they're still growing. They saw a crazy amount of growth in 2021. Even though Facebook said that they had a disappointing quarter, the company's profit grew by 35% in 2021, down from nearly 60% growth in 2020. And we're seeing that the valuation, and that's the total value of what a company is, when you're talking about trillions of dollars for the valuation, we've never experienced anything like this in the history of this country, where you have this type of this type of political financial power in the hands of four companies. What's your take on this, brother?
Yeah, I think the pick off where you just left was, I think we have seen it before, and it was around, you've seen the Industrial Revolution, where these old slave money, which was the wealthy money at the time, was now dealing with those industrial giants. And fast forward now in the world that we're living in, we see old money being those industrial giants are now competing with this new money of tech giants, right? So I think this play a part in now that it's new industries that are now becoming more profitable, but those profitabilities of these new industries is all in alignment to the advancement of humans, right? So in that sense, it's going to cause us to see a shift in down to what we were speaking of in the last segment of how party and government affiliations will change and how the voting polls and the candidacies and constituents will change off of that as well. Because when that comes in, now governments have to find a way to regulate, like you're saying. And we're seeing bills like this that is trying to somehow, some way, and I can't speak on whether it'll be advantageous or will there be some unintentional harm that'll come in the near future. But we're starting to see how government and themselves can try to regulate these new industries that have advanced so well ahead of the times that they didn't know what was possible. But to speak on the impact of like social media, I always say that we just bit this apple, right? And I'm speaking of like Steve Jobs and the Apple industry. We bit this apple, and now we have opened up Pandora's box. And
we bit this. Hey, Rashad, we bit this apple, brother. We bit this apple, and then we made apple pie. That's what we did. We bit the apple, and now we have made the new American apple pie. Technology is the apple pie of this country, man.
Yep. And what to speak on that, what is quite interesting, you know, I'm a researcher. I love digging deep. I never take surface level information for truth. So as I started to, you know, even become a millennial myself that is not very trusting in technological advancement, I'm a scriber. I read hard copy books and things of that sort. I'd rather be tangible than uploading everything to the cloud. Because one, I don't know who owns the cloud, and I don't want anyone to think that they own me. So in that sense, when I looked at the birth of Apple and things of that sort, and you saw when Steve Jobs was creating it, in his book, he speaks on, he created a product that will become so user-friendly for the human advancement that it will eventually dumb down human intellect, right? Yeah. Because now we aren't needing a need for critical thinking, right? A need for discernment, that we will just take what is already populated based off of algorithms that's already aligned to our interests, right? To make us think of a conscious decision to make that we probably was already in favor of, rather than exposing us to the other ladder end to make us think critically and then make a more informed decision. So it was like he created this product that he know would be so user-friendly, but the unintentional consequences, which was conscious to him, was that he knew that he will eventually dumb down the human development and evolution, and will oftentimes these same products would eventually trump us as humans. And now it's like, so we need to be mindful of that harm, and that harm has shown up in the harm and the exploitation of our young people, the unexploited marketing of our young people. We've seen a rise in suicides and afflictions on our young people, unhealthy relationships, and the fact that, yes, our young people have all of these social media, smartphone, and devices, but we have not found a way to translate that they can use it for their educational advancement. Right. So when we had to adapt into a virtual setting, yes, I had an Instagram. Yes, I had a Snapchat, but none of these was taught for me in the school system to teach me about research, or was to teach me that if I have 140 characters to express myself on Twitter, that this same character way of expressing myself is an elevator pitch for me to pitch out my ideas. Right. So there's still gaps in how we can utilize these platforms for our better advancement interpersonally and socially. And with this, hopefully that this regulation itself gives us something more, because if the man himself that created one of the most profitable industries did not allow his own children to use the products, we as consumers might want to be just as conscious of whether we want our children to use these products.
Hey, look, that is like the bigger part of this conversation, that a lot of these designers and engineers are saying, hey, we know that we have put addictive elements that speak to the psychology of these products in these products. And hey, I don't want my children to use them. Let me just share with you a couple of our comments. Sabong checked in and said, social media is harmful to us all, and particularly to children. Children should not be marketed or tracked or any other way exploited by social media companies. No online presence till 18. I feel you. But Facebook or Meta is still determining whether they should put out an Instagram for 13-year-olds. I'm not lying, folks. Keep your eyes on that one. We're going to keep our eyes on it here. But they're talking about creating an Instagram for 13 and younger. They're talking about already getting your child into the rhythm and the pattern of being attached to their phone. Janelle Fields checked in and said, look, all of these harmful risks to minors should be addressed by proper health care and mental health resources. They are trying to farm out the government role of providing for the general welfare of the people. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think that there needs to be some mental health component to this, because we all know, and we're starting to see it more and more, the debilitating effects of social media in terms of body imagery, in terms of facts, because young people will assume, will believe, and I mean that's just what happens when you're gullible and you're young, but you will believe anything. If it's presented as a truthful thing, you're going to believe it. Hell, adults believe anything. We believe anything if it's presented in a truthful manner. So yes, mental health resources are going to be important. I think that we can't just put the onus on just the social media companies. There has to be a responsibility that parents have to take, Rashad. There has to be a responsibility that, as a culture, that we can't put everything on social media, in a sense of we can't always say, hey, just go ahead and learn on social media, or just go ahead, check out this video, it's on social media. Like, we have to change our culture. We may have to starve social media because we feeding it with our attention, with our eyes, with our dollars every day. So we may have to starve social media for them to get the point that, you know what, you could be a part of my life, and we need to set these boundaries. You could be a part of my life, but you're not going to run my life. You're not going to just totally dictate or take up all of my time and attention. And I think that we need to be intentional about that. Rashad, we got like 30 seconds, but what's your take on that?
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I think it should be considered a part of our daily routine and dieting, right? What are we consuming? And as some of the biggest consumers, we need to determine what is our portion of consumption, right? What is best fitting for us, right? And at that time, we need to be, like you said, intentional and self-aware that it's time to cut it off and it's time to cut it back on. But if we are to use any of these resources, social media itself, it should be a tool of advancement and not destruction or distraction. Long story short.
Absolutely. It can't be, we use it as a tool. And I know some people say, well, you can use it as a tool, to empower, to share. And I know business owners, they go on there and they use social media to talk about, to share their business and all of those things. But folks, you can't just completely forget about the power of influence.
Right.
That like, if you go on TikTok, it ain't just about no damn business. You know what I'm saying? Like, you go on TikTok, you're going to see dance videos. That's what, I mean, people making millions of dollars off of dance videos. You go on Facebook, it's not just about, I just want to connect with people. It's Facebook. You're liable to see everything from cats playing pianos to somebody getting hit in the mouth. It's everything. You go on Instagram, and I don't want to say it like this, but you're going to see some adult material, man. You're going to see some adult material. And so, we got to be very cognizant that the culture that we are a part of and that we are promoting is going to set the agenda for how social media is going to be, how social media is. If we don't change us, the culture won't change, social media won't change. It's just that simple, Rashad. It's just that simple. Look, I got to take another pause. When we come back, let's continue the conversation. I want to talk about how Loretta Lynch, the first Black attorney general, remember Loretta Lynch? She worked under the Obama administration. The first Black attorney general has now been called by the NFL to defend the NFL in the lawsuit that was made by former Miami head coach Brian Flores. Can you believe this? The first Black attorney general. We're going to get into some conversation about that, go into a nice deep dive, check in with Coach Butch McAdams, and get more insight. So keep your comments coming, and more importantly, stay tuned. We got a lot to get to in the second hour of The Culture here on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Don't you think it's time to get wealthy? I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show on the Black Star Network focuses on the things your financial advisor or bank isn't telling you. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for a Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome to The Culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm so thankful and grateful that you're able to join us for the second hour of today's show. So much to talk about in this hour. We're going to kick off the conversation, having a little bit of a deep dive into this NFL situation. And now some of you might be wondering to yourself, why do you keep talking about the NFL, Farajii? Why do you keep talking about it? Because one, it's people are still talking about it, and it's still relevant. But then the other thing is, I think that the NFL is a prime example of an institution that is in a space where the wave of change is pushing it and compelling it to do something more than what it has already done. You can't change any institution with a PR campaign. You can't change any institution with good sounding words or a motto. You can't even change an institution because you have called on influential figures to say the institution has changed. There has to be a very concerted, intentional effort to go to the root of that institution and to change what that institution stands on. Whether that change starts from where that institution, some of the dominant attitudes around that institution, whether that change comes from the leadership of that institution. But there has to be some deep-rooted fundamental changes. It can't just happen on the outside. It can't be, well, in order for us to change, you have to do this. No, the institution has to say, we messed up, we're wrong, we're not in tune with the moment right now. All of that has to happen before you're really talking about moving forward. And with this NFL institution, if the NFL is not in a position or do not put themselves in a position where it really wants to change, it doesn't matter how grand the Super Bowl is, how much money, players get, it's still not representative of the culture that we all are pushing for, which is equity, which is justice, which is being right and truthful. Here to help me to have this conversation, we are joined by host of In and Out of Sports, Coach Butch McAdams. We had him on last week. Coach, it's always a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's always a pleasure to be with you. Man, I respect and admire your work greatly.
Thank you. Thank you. Coach, I want to set this up before we jump into the conversation with you and my culture crew members. We're going to be joined in a moment by Oyen Adedoyan, who is a journalist, and of course, Nira Muhammad, who is a writer and activist, educator, and host of Queen Talk podcast, Queen Talks with Nira podcast. So we're going to be joined by them. Of course, I got my guy Rashad. But Coach, let's look at the situation. The NFL has now retained the services of the former and first Black female Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, to defend it in this high-profile lawsuit that was made by the former head coach of the Miami Dolphins, Brian Flores. So they've enrolled and asked for the help of a Black woman to defend them against a Black man. Now, Loretta Lynch, she serves as a partner of the law firm Paul, Weiss, Rifkind, Wharton, and Garrison, and she's working with the law firm's chairman, Brad Karp, on this litigation, according to the sources familiar with this situation. The Dolphins, also named as a defendant in the Flores case, their real estate billionaire owner, Stephen Ross, have turned to Quinn Emanuel Urquhart and Sullivan litigator William Burke to defend them. Now, of course, Flores has made the allegations of pervasive racial bias in hiring that was filed on February the 1st. He named 3 NFL teams, the Denver Broncos, Miami Dolphins, and New York Giants, as defendants. He is Black and Hispanic, and he was fired by the Dolphins in January, and he was subsequently chosen not to fill several NFL head coaching openings. His complaint cited statements from some league executives that included the attorney and chief diversity inclusion officer, Jonathan Bean, about the NFL needing to do more for minorities. I want to look at this situation because the NFL put out a statement when they found out that Brian Flores moved forward with this lawsuit, saying that they called Flores's bias claims meritless and said diversity is core to its mission, and that the league said it would investigate a specific allegation in his lawsuit, which accused Ross, the owner, of offering him a $100,000 bonus for each game lost during the 2019 season. So they're going to look into that. But Coach, you've been in sports for a long time. You've been reporting on sports for a long time. Loretta Lynch coming into this situation. I'm trying to wrap my mind around why would the league choose her, and more importantly, why would she take on this case?
Well, it's obvious why the league chose her. I mean, we all can see that, to have a high-profile black woman represent them in a discrimination case. All right. So that's obvious. Now, why she would take the case? Hey, lawyers take cases. All right. But my humble opinion, they can have Perry Mason, Johnny Cochran. However, when you have evidence such as Bill Belichick sending a text message, allegedly, to Flores saying, congratulations, you're in, you got the job. But he didn't send it to Flores intentionally. He meant to send it to the other guy, Brian, both of whom were his assistants. And so and then this was days before Flores was scheduled to interview with the Giants for the job.
Right.
Okay, now, so right there, how do you defend that? How do you defend that? All right, if nothing else, it brings to light the Rooney Rule is used in most cases as a sham. Because a lot of these teams have already know who they want to hire. But the Rooney Rule says you've got to interview at least one, maybe two minorities. So they go through the motions. And then that's that. Now, the Miami situation, in my opinion, is not a racial situation. Now, it's a serious allegation about giving a directive and offering bonuses to Tank. But I don't look at the Miami firing as a racial situation. And I'm going to tell you why I don't. I look at it as because the Miami general manager who fired him was a black man. And I look at that, it's unfortunate, but I look at that as a situation where you had a coach and a general manager not on the same page in terms of personnel decision. And that happens a lot. And in most cases, the coach wins, doesn't win out. The general manager wins. So I don't look at the firing from a racial perspective, but definitely after he got fired, there were so many reports saying that this guy is going to be the next coach of Chicago Bears. Didn't happen. Denver Broncos, didn't happen. New York Giants, didn't happen. That's racial. There's no question about it. That's racial.
So it sounds like to me, Coach, that by first thing you mentioned Loretta Lynch, you're saying that, hey, she is all business, because some of our viewers are saying, look, that was a business decision. That was a part of her law firm. It was a business thing. You know, she's an attorney. That's what attorneys do. They take on those cases. But then that's right. It also kind of, for me, it signals that, you know, she's looking at this case, and I think she's a brilliant woman. You know, I mean, she served in the role as being the attorney general. I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe she's seeing something in this particular case. Like, she wouldn't take on a high profile case unless she can think she can win it. And so I'm saying, well, maybe the devil is in the details.
Well, look, it may not even get to court. It may not even get to court. Okay, I mean, there's a chance it may not get to court, and there's a chance that it could be some type of deal cut out. All right, and if that happens, I'm okay, because what Flores has done is he's brought light to the long-time racial disparities at the administrative level. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if he can get compensated in terms of, let's say, maybe a 3-year salary or 2-year salary, then good for him.
Coach, I want to bring in.
I don't know if they.
Go ahead, Coach.
Okay,
I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, with the NFL, they are a marketing machine, and when you're a marketing machine, image is of the utmost importance. I don't know if they want this to go to court. I really don't. So I'm thinking, and I could be wrong, that they're going to cut a deal. Flores gets paid, gets compensated, and then, and we'll get to it later, strong possibility of having a Black owner, majority owner.
All right, I want to bring in my culture crew to get their take on this. We are joined again by my culture crew member, Rashad Staton. And Rashad, thank you so much again for being a part of this. You're an activist and educator. We're also joined by Nira Muhammad, who is a writer. She is an educator, and she's host of Queen Talks with Nira. You can hear her podcast on all streaming platforms. And we're also now joined by Oyin Adedoyin, who is a journalist and has worked in many spaces around this issue of equity and race. Thank you, all three of you, again, for being a part of this conversation, crew. Nira, I want to start with you first. A Black woman is called to come in and to defend the NFL, which has had its problems with both Black people and women. But do you think that she might be seeing something in this case that we're not privy to say that this case is not necessarily about race? It just might be, as Coach said, a difference of opinion. Or do you think that some people are already calling her a sellout? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I would have to agree with Coach. I definitely believe that a woman who is as smart as Lynch is definitely looking at this as a strategic power move. I'm also looking at two sides of the coin. I saw in the chat someone said that, I hear that, but business at what cost of the people? It's obvious why she was chosen to represent them. And this is from our YouTube chat. And I see both sides of it, how some people are saying, oh, well, Black women are trendy. Oh, the NFL got a Black woman to represent them in this case. And so I do feel as though Black women are used as front runners because it does make image. It makes them look better. As Coach just said, the NFL is all about image. They are money-making machine. They know what they're doing. I think that now, does that mean that Black women should not take these opportunities? That's the thing. As a Black woman, do I not take opportunities because I feel as though I'm seen as a token Black woman? Or do I take those opportunities and use those to propel me to then go back into my community and help them out as much as I possibly can? So I see this from two sides of the coin. I can understand some people feeling as though she's a sellout, but then I also understand her saying, hey, I'm a lawyer. This is what I'm trained to do. This is a high profile case. Why am I, as a Black woman, not as deserving as a high profile case as a Black man or as a white counterpart? Black women deserve to be in these high profile cases and roles as well. So
absolutely, it is a both sides issue. Oyin, when we looking at the dynamics of race and power and sex, all of those things, like in this one moment, just in that one pick of Loretta Lynch, how do you think that this is going to play out? Coach says that that the NFL may not. He believes that NFL don't want to put this into a space of take it to court. But when you have a high profile person on the case like this, it almost seems like even though they may not want that to happen, they're getting ready for it to happen.
Yeah, I mean, what strikes me is obviously the NFL has been just a hotbed for controversy in recent years, and we know this, and they know this, that they are in the spotlight, and so any decision that they make is going to be highly scrutinized. And what struck me about Lynch is that prior to this, she's led investigations at universities that have dealt with contentious situations with police in regards to race, and in my work, I do a lot of reporting on those types of tensions and what results from student protests. And so it's interesting. I'm interested to see how she applies that knowledge into this role now. And even though, the NFL might be making this pick in terms of how it would look publicly, I am interested in seeing how she's going to utilize this and use her past experiences to kind of make the situation advantageous as well.
What about, and Oyen, and this is for all of you as well, to the other crew members, but Oyen, I'm gonna start with you on this one. What about the moral responsibility? It's so interesting that as we have this conversation about the NFL or about sports or entertainment, sports and entertainment in general, there's this other part of the conversation about the moral responsibility. How do you see morality playing in this whole thing? Do you feel like the NFL is working from the same moral code, or it will try to work from the same moral code as the fans have, or as its lawyers may have? How do you see that playing out, Oyen?
That's a tough question to answer, because especially in today's society, things are incredibly contentious. And looking at businesses, and looking at how businesses across the board have been trying to structure themselves so that they're sending out a message that is, showing what they're supporting, what they're not supporting. It's difficult to see how moral codes can play a role in mass messaging like this one. I am interested in seeing how a giant company like the NFL kind of continues to further that message, because there is one thing for sure, the selection for representation is conveying a certain message that they want to have spread.
No, I truly believe, Oyen, that this wasn't just happenstance, and this was not just a situation of like, oh, let's just pick a lawyer. It's like, this was intentional. Coach, what are you going to say on this, sir?
Well, as I said, I mean, it's obvious. It's very obvious what they are. Fight fire with fire. If this goes to court, that I stated, racism in Miami, I don't see how you can prove that New York situation.
Yeah.
With the text message, if he's got the text message and the date on the message, and that is before his meeting, then I want to see how she could defend that. Okay, right. But you talked about morality. Come on, man. In a capitalistic society, for read the Bible. What does the Bible say? It's easier for what? A camel to get through the eye of a needle than a rich man to heaven.
Right. And Coach, I want to stop you right there. Coach, I want to stop you right there just because your audio is choppy. So I want to make sure we get that, because I think the point that you're making is an excellent point, and I want to make sure that our listeners get it all. So we want to have our team just to make sure get your audio back up. But I think to Coach's point, Rashad, that we might be putting too much on this situation. At the end of the day, the NFL is not a moral institution. It's an institution for sport and play. It's an institution for entertainment. It's not, like as long as the players are staying healthy, they're getting paid well for what they do. Why should we even bring in any type of moral code into the conversation? What would you say?
Yeah, I'm gonna make it as simple and plain as possible. I'm calling cap until they reinstate Kaepernick, right?
But Kaepernick ain't getting reinstated, bro.
Yeah. But I'm
just saying that to you, and I'm gonna say that to everybody else watching. Kaepernick is not coming back to the NFL. I get it. I'm right there with y'all. Trust and believe, but he's not coming back.
But until we have a point where we can solidify and we can have a symbolic win that shows some reinstatement of us, our humanity and our rights to have voice to power, I'm calling cap until they reinstate Kaepernick, right? Because if that is not the place, the brother Kaepernick and his stance and what he's done, he was forced to be an unwarranted martyr. Flaunting himself with this and him creating this lawsuit is now going to force himself, even if it does not go to court, that he's not going to have the opportunity for employability as a coach that he is rightfully deserved of, which means he's going to be stripped of an opportunity that he's well deserving of. And it's going to cause him to go into our history books as not a winning coach, but as a martyr for the rights of fair representation in the NFL, which is a smaller microcosm of the racial structures of America. White ownership over black bodies to exploit for the benefit of exploitable wealth, right? And this is all play. And that is what they're playing in this lawsuit, is an optic game of politics. The NFL and politics,
but here's the thing about it. Look, a couple of things about that, Rashad. Brian Flores knew that when he filed that lawsuit, that there were going to be some major consequences. He already knew that. He mentioned that himself. He knew that he would probably will not be able to work in the National Football League again. Mm-hmm. He already knew that. So he put the bomb. I mean, he walked across the bridge and then tossed the bomb behind him. You know what I'm saying? It was just like he knew that what he was doing was really setting up a situation for future coaches.
Correct.
Versus,
That's right.
he just got into a space where he already knew that. But the other point that you're making about, just having Kaepernick on and look, the NFL was embarrassed by Kaepernick. And as we go back to what Coach said, and I'm in 100% agreement with this, the NFL is a marketing machine, and they were embarrassed. Mm-hmm. And as a result of that, guess what? They're not going to bring back the guy that embarrassed them. It's not going to happen. They really don't want to do nothing. They don't want to have nothing to do with Kaepernick at this point. They don't care about his show. They don't care about his documentary. They don't care about his damn ice cream. They don't want to do nothing to deal with Kaepernick at this point. They just want to push the Kaepernick situation to the back. What this situation is, and one of the things that Kaepernick did not do, he didn't take it to court.
Right.
And now there are going to be mandates. They're going to be, they are looking at, there's the possibility that Congress can even go as far into looking into the business affairs and how things have been done in Miami. They're looking into the business affairs of other of the teams. This is much deep. This is much bigger than I think Kaepernick, Nero. This is about restructuring the fundamental system of how the NFL does how they do what they do.
Yeah, but Rashad made an awesome point, though. I mean, this is not something new. America has been built on this. We've always been a cash cow. America's been built on capitalism in general. That's the nature of our country. I'm literally studying film, and I was just literally studying this morning in my class about how the film industry and how Hollywood said when they create these big studios, oh yeah, we only want white men directing. So all the movies in the beginning were told from a white male heterosexual perspective.
Wow. So
you have to understand that these are systems within major corporations that have been around for years. Years. This is the structure. This is the foundation of America. So this is going to take years of dismantling. So we have to look at it from a racial perspective. We have to look at it from a capitalistic perspective and a historical perspective. And this, again, this is not just about Black. This is about women. This is about different who you choose to identify as. I mean, there's so many layers to this. It's like an onion, there's like a lot of layers to it. There's a lot of flavors to it. It might be too strong for some people. When you saute it, it's good. It's so many layers to this. So I just want us to keep it into perspective that yes, we are asking a lot for morality to be shown from the NFL, but we can push for that shit because we support the NFL. Our Black bodies make up 70% of the NFL. So we have every right to push for equal rights, equal pay, Black faces to be in management, Black women in general. So I'm with all of it. I think we got to push for it. But again, I think we have to take our emotions out of it to a certain degree, because I don't want to see us continuously getting ourselves heartbroken. We need to just be strategic in what we're asking for and keep a foot on their damn neck. It's that simple.
And I agree with you on that point. And Lenora checked in on our on our YouTube, and Lenora said no one is saying she isn't deserving, but she should consider the community as a whole. I am sure, as intelligent and high profile as she is, I am sure she has plenty of opportunities. Oyen, I want to kind of speak to that point because we believe that in a situation like this, that everybody is going to be, for the culture, quote unquote, right? That, Loretta Lynch is going into this situation and she's representing the Black community. And it's like almost this thing where I don't know why we make this assumption or why we place that on somebody without seeing the full picture. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, I feel like it kind of goes back into what was said, about even Kaepernick kind of falling into this accidental martyr position. It's difficult, that burden that's often placed on Black individuals, especially those who are in the spotlight, in the limelight, to constantly make the quote unquote right decision, to constantly represent the whole community on their backs. And it's one of those things that, I do a lot of reporting on colleges and universities, and we speak to a lot of diversity officers who are often Black people, usually Black women, who now have to essentially tell, a white university, predominantly white university, how to treat its Black students, which is a lot of weight to put on one individual. And so kind of applying that to this case, it's a lot of weight to put on one individual.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Especially one that has dedicated, a big chunks of their career to representing minority students and to representing minorities in general, to constantly make those decisions when you don't consider the other factors.
So what's the recourse in your... Okay, go ahead, Nero, go ahead.
No, I literally was just thinking that's so true. Being like the Black woman in the room, and you have like everyone, like, especially if you're the only Black person or the only, and I'm sure Black men can attest to this too, and have everyone turn around and look at you for your opinion or your thought, and you're just like, yo, I'm not the token Black person. Like, I'm a professional just like you. My lens doesn't always have to be from the Black woman perspective. My lens can just be from a human perspective, as an educator, as whatever my profession is, or it might just come from a journalistic perspective. She might be like, this is just authentic journalism. This is not about me being a Black woman. This is just, I'm taking, and it's hard to remove that because we're Black. We're Black no matter where we show up. But white people are white wherever they show up. Asian people are Asian wherever they show up. Why do we always have to lead with our Blackness? We already are Black. You know what I mean? It's like, I don't want to always be seen as the token Black person who has to speak on behalf of all Black people. I think that's a huge responsibility, and I think it's a little unfair.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and I feel like, Coach, when we're talking about leading with your Blackness, and showing up and doing things for the hood, for the community, for the culture, it distracts us from the real thing, the real problem, and that now Loretta Lynch has to carry whether she's properly representing us versus getting to the bottom of this lawsuit. And I feel like that can sometimes take us away from what's really important. What's your take?
Well, and I concur, and I definitely agree with Ms. Muhammad, in that I'm not looking at the former Attorney General as a sellout. I'm looking at the other side, that the NFL, for whatever reason, selected this Black woman for this possible, potentially high-profile case. So she is a barrier breaker in her own right. So now other situations or other potential high-profile cases in the future can go and bring in a Black woman or a Black man. That's how I'm looking at it. I'm not being emotional and say, oh, she's a sellout. No. She's an attorney, and that's what attorneys do. And I'm just proud that they selected a Black woman.
So you're proud that selected a Black woman. Some other folks are saying that they're not proud. But guess what? Let me just look before I even get into the data, Coach, because the last time you was on, we were talking about what were the actual numbers for the Super Bowl. And as much as people are saying it, the NFL is still putting out a product that people have accepted.
Oh, no question.
And so I got to take a quick pause. When we come back, I'm gonna break down some of the data around the Super Bowl, and more importantly, continue this conversation. Also, in the final 30 minutes of tonight's show, we're going to go to trends, post, and doing the most. We got a lot to talk about there. So stay with us. A lot's coming at you right here on The Culture, only on the Black Star Network. We'll be right back.
Pull up a chair, take your seat. The Black Tape with me, Dr. Greg Carr, here on the Black Star Network. Every week, we'll take a deeper dive into the world we're living in. Join the conversation only on the Black Star Network.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way.
Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Roland was amazing on that.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
Folks, welcome back to the show. We've been having a great conversation talking a little bit about the NFL, the latest development in the story of the NFL, as the NFL has now retained the services of former Attorney General, the first Black woman Attorney General, Loretta Lynch. Her firm that she's a part of is now retained for to serve as the defense or the attorney for the NFL. And we're talking about it. Talking about what does that mean, the implications of this, how does this fit into the larger conversation about the NFL and its problem with race and women. Joining us has been radio talk show host, Coach Butch McAdams, who serves as the host of In and Out of Sports. Also, we have our cultural crew. We have Nira Muhammad, who is a writer, who is an educator and host of her own podcast, Queen Talks with Nira, that can be heard. And we're also joined by journalist Oyen Adedoyin to give us some insight about these many layers to this situation. Rashad, I appreciate you, brother. I know that you got to jump off and get ready, but I appreciate you for being on the show with us today. We look forward to circling back next week, brother. Thank you for checking in.
Always for the culture. Peace. Have a good.
Absolutely. All right. So, folks, when we talk about the NFL, Coach, and you brought up this question of last week when we were talking about the NFL and before, but you said you were interested in seeing what the numbers were for this Super Bowl and how things played out. Well, the numbers did come in, and it showed that this Super Bowl, even though it did not break any records, it was still one of the highest viewed Super Bowls over the past 5 years. Now, this Super Bowl garnered a whopping 112 million viewers, and the Super Bowl halftime show brought in 103 million viewers. Woo! Oh my gosh. The highest Super Bowl in league history was back in 2015 when the Seattle Seahawks played your favorite team, dear, the New England Patriots at the time. And they brought in 114 million people tuned into that Super Bowl game. But I'm bringing it up, Coach, because the fact of, when we're saying the power that the NFL has and still being able to go in the midst of all of this stuff, the NFL still finds a way to rebound. And I think that's something that we can't forget. From the dent of Kaepernick, from this lawsuit, the NFL seems to find its way to rebound. I don't know if it is because of the pandemic, because just as much as people tuned in for the Super Bowl, they had a high number of people that bet on this Super Bowl this year that broke records. Over 31 million people had put in bets for this year's Super Bowl. I mean, money is still flowing for an institution that is not showing love to all of its fans. How do we reconcile that, Coach?
Well, you reconcile with it. It's an addiction to a lot of people. It's an addiction, plus, as we all have stated, their marketing machine. Okay, and just think about it. They had two teams that weren't household names. Okay,
right.
The Rams and the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, just think, if it were Kansas City and Green Bay, now that's what everybody was probably rooting for. Can you imagine what those ratings would have been?
Yeah.
Okay, so hey, look, the beat goes on. And this is something that a lot of folks who are not close to it don't understand. The NFL is unique from other major sports leagues. They have what is known as shared revenues, meaning that all of the 32 teams, regardless of market size, get the same amount of the pie. For example, New York City, which is the #1 media market in the country, but they don't get any more money from the television revenue than Green Bay. So before a pass is thrown, a tackle is made, all of the 32 owners of these NFL teams, they slice off billions of dollars from TV contracts. That's where the money is. Television, ESPN, NBC, Fox, CBS.
Yeah,
that's where that money is. Shared
revenue. And
shared
Coach,
revenue.
Yeah. And Coach, I'm happy that you brought that up. And I like the fact that you said something I think is very important, and I want to bring Oyen and Nira into this part of the conversation, that the beat goes on. And Oyen, and I'm sure in all of the years that you have been reporting and the work that you've been looking at in terms of issues of race and gender, it's so sad that the beat does go on when there are big moments like this, because it still feels like an open wound, like there hasn't been any real resolution. There has been no relief of the burden of all of the very real issues that are prevalent in this moment, right? With this situation, like the beat is going to go on. The NFL is going to have their they're going to do opening day in September. You know what I'm saying? The networks are going to show the games. The fans are still going to show up. The beat goes on at the expense, and even though, or in spite of, these very serious allegations and this a lack of representation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I hear, whenever I talk to a lot of activists. There is that moment of, okay, well, we've tackled this battle, but we know, that there's going to be another fight, or we've got this one settled. We've kind of put out this fire. Now on to the next one. And so for a lot of people, it can feel like this is just, one thing. This is just another symptom in the greater picture, and life is going to move on as normal, as if nothing changes. But these moments are happening. They are gaining traction. They're gaining attention, and people are talking. And so there is progress being made, but there is also an understanding that give it a week, 2 weeks, a month, the next year, there might be another thing that comes up that's going to require, another debate, another discussion.
Right. And Nira, how do we, we're still talking about Kaepernick now, right? Of course, he will never be forgotten. But how do we make sure that we can cause some level of disruption moving forward? I mean, I feel like this is about to go into a space where it's going to be a lot of legal stuff said. There's going to be some allegations. There's going to become some back and forth. There might be some money paid out, as Coach mentioned. But at the end of the day, on the cultural side of things, how do we make sure that the conversation moves a little further along to where Black people, women are respected and are seen as assets to this league?
First off, I gotta double back to something you said, Farajii. When you were talking, you said you Patriots was your favorite team at that time. What do you mean by that? What did you mean by at that time? Because the Patriots are still my favorite team.
All right, fine. They're your favorite team. No problem.
Always and forever will be my favorite team.
Cool. All right, gotcha.
So to be honest, I feel really, really bad because I love football. I'm gonna keep it a buck. The football season, time of year, the way people get excited about Christmas season, that's how I get excited about football season. Like, I genuinely get sad as we approach the Super Bowl because I'm sad that the season is over. I am one of those people that will literally watch football all day. Like, I don't care if my favorite team is playing. Like, I will watch football all day. And you know that. You'll be like, can we watch something else? And I'm like, can we watch something else? It's Sunday. I'm going to watch the Monday night football game. I'm going to watch the Thursday night football game, even if my team isn't playing. So I hear everything about this being a money machine, but you guys have to keep in perspective. This is also about the love of the game. Yes, there's all this political stuff going on, but at the heart of it, I love the sport. I enjoy watching the sport. I enjoy getting together with family and friends and watching the sport. I enjoy cooking wings on Sundays and nachos and the culture of football. So yes, I hear all the political stuff, but maybe I'm just being a Negro on this one, y'all. Please forgive me. I'm so serious, y'all. Forgive me. I never once boycotted football, and I'm not going to. I'm keeping it a buck. I'm not boycotting football. I love football. Telling me to boycott football is like taking a piece of my heart. So I'm emotionally connected to football. It's the only sport that I even watch, to be honest. I'm not into basketball. I don't care about hockey, and I only watch soccer because my son plays it. So I hear all that. I do want to see women get more respect. I want to see women in higher roles. I want to see Black people in higher roles. Again, I agree to keep pushing the envelope, to keep having these discussions, but don't condemn people for still loving the sport. That's not fair.
That's not fair. Coach, you got the final word on it. I think that's a good point. I mean, can we still love football and still hate the politics of the NFL? Can we just love the game?
Absolutely, because the game, look, as you all have alluded to, the reality is the game is entertainment. It's a diversion. And we all need a diversion, regardless of how committed we are to a cause. We need 2-3 hours or more of an escape where we can enjoy ourselves. And Miss Muhammad, the reason why he wanted to watch something else because he's a Ravens fan, so I understand that.
I mean, the Ravens will give you a heart attack. Your blood pressure be high at the end of a Ravens game.
But let me say this. I would be remiss, and we all would be, not to mention the fact that you will see something come of this. You will see improvement. Now, it's not going to be all overnight, but I do believe that we're going to have at some point, maybe sooner than later, a Black majority owner of a team. Now that is bigger than a coach, a quarterback, to have a Black person be the majority owner of an NFL team. And I think that is a strong possibility. Matter of fact, as I speak, there are multiple reports that Robert F. Smith, arguably the richest Black man in the United States, worth $7 billion. Now, his worth is far more than some of the current owners. I read today where Washington's owner, Daniel Snyder, is worth reported $4 million. Okay. And Robert Smith has reported close to 6.7 million.
Yeah.
I'm hearing that.
Yeah. Billion.
I'm hearing that the commissioner and some owners are literally begging him to put the bid in. And if he puts the bid in, he gets the team. Now, if that happens, then no, it's not all done, but good gracious, we're headed in the right direction. And if that happens, then hey, what Brian Flores was able to do is working.
Yep. There it is. There it is. Coach Butch McAdams, always a pleasure, Coach. And if that happens, we got to bring you back on, Coach, because you called it. So I truly appreciate your time with us as you are giving us some of your sports insight. Thank you so much, Coach. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Coach Butch McAdams, host of In and Out of Sports. Make sure y'all check that out on all streaming platforms. All right, man, oh man. I think it's time for us to get a little distraction. So it's time for your favorite segment, Trends, Posts, and Doing the Most. Let's go. All right, Oyen, this is our segment where we talk about stuff that is happening that we don't understand in social media world and stuff that's trending. You know what I mean? So we gotta acknowledge that, because this is all part of our culture. Because I know, Oyen, when you on your phone, you be looking at that's what I'm gonna say, just like that. You be looking at them trends. You're like, what's trending? Like, oh my gosh, why is this trending? Oh my gosh. And you go down that rabbit hole.
I am a full-on TikTok fiend.
Right now, let me ask you this before. I know what Nira's. I know where she goes for her trends and stuff, because she always keeps me up to date. But Oyo, what platform do you use when you're trying to find out what's happening, the latest trends on anything?
Yeah, literally TikTok. TikTok is always up to date with.
Oh my God!
Everything that's going on in real time.
Oh my God! TikTok. You mean the dance app?
Yes, but it's more than that. It has people always find out about breaking news on there. Who's dating who broke up with who, what shows just came out. Everything is on there.
I'm about to give you the Kanye West gift face. That is sad. That is so sad. All right, so here's what's trending right now. One is, if you did not know, Issa Rae, of course, she is from the city of Los Angeles, and she has her business, Hooray Media, is situated right there in Inglewood. She is the first person to be given the keys to the city or to the community of Inglewood. Now, of course, Issa Rae is the creator of the HBO award-winning series Insecure. She's moved on. That show has ended. She's moving on to other projects and ventures. But she is the first woman and the first person, to be awarded this very, very prestigious honor. If you watched Insecure, you would know that Issa often put LA, Inglewood in a very, she just told a story through the city landscapes and some of the spaces. Dear, I'm gonna start with you, because you have looked at Insecure, you're studying film. How important is it that you are like a writer and a creator of a show like this, like get the keys to the city and being told, hey, you really put us on the map in a very positive way? How big is this?
First of all, it happened in the show.
Right. That's
so
true.
The fact that it happened in the show, it was just really, really cute. Personally, I don't think that she would have gotten the keys if she didn't have that little scene in the show. I think it really did spark them to be like, you know what? She does deserve to get a key. We should give her a key. I know for a fact they did. And I just think that it's beautiful. That is a prime example of how to manifest what you want into your life. She manifested that. Because again, like I said, I don't think that it would have happened had she not made that scene where she envisioned what she wanted for herself. And And so much of the show, you could tell that she really, really put herself into Issa D. Issa D is Issa. Like, of course, it's fiction, but
right.
she really channeled herself into that character. And so even in those flash forwards of her life, that's the Issa that we see now. You know what I mean? Especially if you follow the show from season 1 to season 5, then you really know, like, season 1 was like Issa, Issa Rae, and now Issa D is what we saw at the very end with that. Getting the keys to the city. So again, it was just a full culmination for the ending of the show, for everything that she's done. Black woman manifesting what she wants in her life. I'm for it. I love Issa, and I'm happy for her. So yeah,
that it's a big moment, Orion. It's a big moment. Issa Rae getting the keys to Inglewood. What's your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, I am a Insecure fan through and through. I was watching it. I've been watching it with my best friend since it came out. It's one of those shows that just, as a student myself who was going on HBCU at the time, like, I just felt so seen in that, like, awkward Black girl character that she created there, and it just became such a safe space. And I'm still pretty hurt that the show's over, but very, very glad. Yeah, heartbroken the show's over. But very, very glad that Issa Rae is getting her flowers, and just more people she's kind of being pushed away into the mainstream now. And I feel like sometimes it can be hard for us to kind of, like, we want to gatekeep those people. Like, we're like, oh, now everybody knows about Issa Rae, but she is one of those people that, like you said, she really put Inglewood at the forefront of the show, especially towards the later seasons. And she really put herself and her friends' stories, and like she showcased all different multitudes of Black people and the city as well in that show. And so I feel like well deserved, very great.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of California, folks, if you have not checked out the new reboot of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, aka Bel-Air, all I'm gonna say, folks, is check it out tonight. It airs on Thursday nights on the Peacock Network, but had a chance to see it, and I have to say, Culture Crew, this is probably one of the best reboots I've ever seen.
No, like, it's written so well. I'm gonna stop there.
You did?
I see the clip. Like, I want the clip to be shown, so I'm gonna be quiet so we can watch.
No, well, the clip. We only got a couple of minutes. The clip is 3 minutes long.
I mean, you know what? Oh, yeah. Are we running a clip? Are they gonna be able to hear it?
No, it's not. All I'm gonna say. Go ahead and give your analysis there. Go ahead and give your analysis.
No, to be honest, it's so hard to take a show like The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air that is such a beloved show and reboot it and make sure that you stay authentic, but again, make it fit for the time. Because if you look at the sitcom of the 90s, that's not the style of TV today. So looking at Bel-Air, the way they rewrote the script, the way they really transition these characters to fit 2022 is absolutely beautiful. From the cinematography to the script to just, you could really tell that this was a lot of time and love was put behind this series.
Yeah.
And I am for it. I binge watched all 3 episodes on Sunday. I can't wait for tonight. Will, the whole team, you guys, I'm in love. I'm in love.
Big shout out to filmmaker visionary Morgan Cooper, who is responsible for putting out that clip.
Was it that trailer?
That trailer. Of course, he's on now. He's working on the show, but he put out that trailer back in 2019. $25,000 to put that trailer to reimagine this beloved show, and he put it in such a way, absolute visionary to take this. And I have to say, the show, Oyen, gives a huge nod to the lyrics, to the whole vibe, and it's amazing to see. This is like magic. I don't know if you had a chance to check it out yet or not, Oyen, but this is something truly special.
Yeah, no, I've seen kind of the promo and the commercials for the show, and honestly, I'm one of those people that I've been burned by reboots so many times that I'm very hesitant.
You want to talk about being burned? Did you see the Gossip Girl reboot?
Yes.
I
Yes.
I absolutely. I am like a huge. When I say I'm a huge Gossip Girl fan.
Yeah.
I hate the reboot so much.
Right.
And I hate it with like this deep-rooted passion. I'm like, why? If they were gonna reboot it, they should have picked up where they left off. How they, they took it 5 years in the future. I would have loved to see like where Nate and everybody was now. So Oyen, I completely agree with you. Reboots can be really trashy. They really suck sometimes. This is not that. I promise you. This is the reboot that we didn't know that we needed.
Okay.
Like, for real.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. Ain't that the truth? All right, final piece.
But now that we got it.
Oh, I know I needed it. I know I needed it. I needed all of it. Black excellence, black wealth, black power. I needed it all. All right, final piece.
Beautiful to see rich black people though. Like
huge. It's big.
Beautiful.
It's big. You got to be rich to live in Bel-Air. Final piece on this very quickly as we close out the show. Yesterday, we didn't get a chance to talk about it yesterday, Nero, but yesterday was the 4-year anniversary of the release of Black Panther. Do y'all remember that? Do y'all remember Black Panther when it first hit? I can't believe it's been 4 years.
No, do you remember I messed up the tickets? I made a mistake and put the
Yeah, you really messed up the tickets on that. She bought it for the wrong damn time, boy. I was mad as hell. But we went to see it. We were able to see it. She got to see it twice. I got to see it once. And then I got to see it 1,000 times because we bought the DVD. Really quickly, I got like 10 seconds for each of you. But Black Panther, what else can be said? One of the best Marvel movies of all time. We know about what it did at the box office, but I think it's one of the best black representation movies that we ever had. Oyen, what's your take very quickly?
I mean, yeah, there's so much to say. It was revolutionary. As someone who is Nigerian, my parents immigrated from Nigeria when I was 4 years old. It just felt personal to me, and it felt great seeing other Black Americans kind of connect with that Wakanda spirit. It was unifying.
Absolutely. Dear, 10 seconds. What's your take on Black Panther?
For me, just seeing our Black boys and girls so excited to see themselves represented in Marvel was just like the most beautiful thing. Seeing my son, his excitement, I think, was the biggest part for me. Like wanting to be Black Panther for Halloween that year, and just his excitement and wanting to watch the movie all the time, and that pride and joy that it gave our kid. That was it for me.
That was it. I always got what comes down to one thing. Yeah. I'm so happy to be Chadwick Boseman's brother.
But I'm saying though, I really wanted Aldous Hodge to. I want Aldous Hodge as Black Panther, but we'll see.
Yeah, we will see how they will handle the whole Black Panther situation. Yeah. I think they need to recast it. I don't think he needs to die along with it. And
I don't think it's fair to the character.
I love and we want to rest in power to Chadwick Boseman, who took that character, brought him to life. So. But 4 years ago, folks, Black Panther came to theaters and it brought us all to Wakanda. So Wakanda forever. All right, Oyen Adedoyin, thank you so much. We hope to bring you back on. We appreciate your time. And of course, Nira Muhammad, host of Queen Talks with Nira. You can check out her podcast on all streaming platforms. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. And of course, doing it for the culture.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Folks, that's going to do it for me. I thank all of you for being a part of the discussions. I certainly thank Coach Butch McAdams, and I thank all of you for tuning in. Make sure you show your support for Black Star Network. You can do that at blackstarnetwork.com, and you can pay and make those payments and give those donations in a variety of ways. So make sure you go to Black Star Network, download the app, tell your friends and family about it, and let's do something for Black-owned media. Let's support Black-owned media like never before. All right. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. I look forward to talking to you, God willing, tomorrow for another exciting episode of The Culture right here on the Black Star Network. Stay tuned. In a little bit, check in with my big brother Roland Martin for Roland Martin Unfiltered, as it's hosted by brother by Reese Colbert tonight. So make sure you check that out. As always, talk to you soon. Peace.